joint meeting of the Minnehaha County and the Sioux Falls Planning Commissions, and we'll begin with a few introductory comments. As a courtesy to everyone tonight, please make sure that all cell phones are turned off. The two planning commissions work together on land use and zoning matters within the rural areas surrounding the city. The area is displayed on the screen. After information and testimony is presented on an agenda item, the members will discuss the matter, and then each planning commission will vote independently to arrive at a decision. When the joint agenda is completed, the city planning commission will adjourn, and the meeting will continue as the county planning commission considers items beyond the joint zoning jurisdiction. Any final action taken on the conditional use permits request will take effective 5 working days following this meeting unless a written appeal of the planning commission's decision is filed in the planning office by Tuesday, May 30th at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the city council and county commission for a joint meeting hearing on Tuesday, June 27th at 5 p.m. And those meetings are held at Carnegie Town Hall at 235 West 10th Street. Final action on the text amendment will also be heard at the June 27th meeting at 5 p.m. At this time, we will consider this consent agenda. The minutes from the April 24th meeting are on the consent agenda. Are there any objections from the Planning Commission members on any item listed on the consent agenda?
None.
Okay, seeing none. Next, I'll read each item on the consent agenda. If any member of the audience objects to the item, please raise your hand and the item will be moved to the regular agenda to allow you to address the commission later in the meeting. And we really only have the minutes. Is the only consent agenda item of the last meeting, which was April 24, 2007. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the the consent agenda there, or the approval of minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a
Whatever.
second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries on the county side.
On the city side, motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any objection or any discussion? All in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed, same sign. Moved on the city side.
Okay, so now we'll move to the regular agenda. Do we need a motion to approve the regular agenda? I think we do. Okay, we need a motion.
So
for the regular
motion,
agenda.
so moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the regular agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
City side, motion to approve the regular agenda.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the regular agenda signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, same sign. We are approved on the city side.
Okay, for the regular agenda, item number 2 is a zoning text amendment number 17-01 to amend the 2002 revised joint zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County and the city of Sioux Falls for revision of boundaries of joint jurisdiction, and Albert Schmidt is the presenter.
Commissions, thank you for your time tonight. This is the ordinance recommendation for kind of the follow-through from what we did with the SHAPE Sioux Falls 2040 update, which you may remember. We brought that back a couple times, and you guys have seen it. So briefly, the minor changes that we're doing with the actual ordinance update, we're moving kind of a date reference to the ordinance so it kind of stands with updates and doesn't look to the average person like it's an old ordinance. But as we all know, it gets amended as you go, but without the date, it kind of makes it appear more up to date. We're also updating the date of adoption for the comprehensive plan, and then the minor correction to a little technical citation that was in there. But then the biggest thing, the main reason why we're actually here, is for the updated boundary of the joint jurisdiction area. We're changing that to match what we've adopted with the comprehensive plan. Now, when you look at the timelines here, the comp plan, we did the adoption through Minnehaha County March 28th. Sioux Falls did it on April 18th. Lincoln County did it April 25th. So that's for the actual comp plan itself. And now we're going through the joint jurisdiction plan. Lincoln County had their planning and Sioux Falls joint meeting May 10th. This one's May 22nd. And then we'll go forward with our elected officials hopefully around June 27th, and then hopefully have it in effect by the end of July. The area that we're talking about adding in is the area that's in tan here. So you can see our current boundary areas identified with the black line. And again, the area that's in tan is the area we're expanding into with the joint jurisdiction, so this board will have authority over that area in the future, possibly as soon as late July. After this, the ordinance will be adopted with the elected officials. And then the next time this group would potentially see this again would be during our next major amendment, which is probably 2020, 2025. So I may or may not see some of your faces at that time. But quick and short, that's all I have for you guys. With any questions, I'd take.
Okay, any questions? Mr. Schmidt?
City side.
None.
Seeing none, thank you.
It's a public hearing.
Okay, it's a public hearing. Anyone in the audience care to address this item? Anyone else care to address this item? If not, okay. I guess I really didn't, anybody, I didn't have any questions either, I guess. So we need a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second to the motion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries on the county side.
On the city side, motion to approve item number 2.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of item number 2, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, same sign.
Yes.
Item 2 is approved on the city side.
Okay, the motion, item carries, and now we go to item number 3, conditional use permit 1738 to allow a solid waste transfer station to store biosolids on the property, which is petitioners John Fisher, owners William Odie. It's approximately 1 mile east of Sioux Falls and 4,500 feet south of the Rice Street and 6 Mile Road. And Scott Anderson is reporting on this one.
Thanks. Okay, once again, Scott Anderson, County Planning Director, and this is a request by the city of Brandon for a solid waste transfer station. They will be storing biosolids on property that's located approximately 4,500 feet south of Rice Street and on the west side of 6 Mile Road. The city of Brandon is applying for this conditional use permit to allow for a biostorage area. They are proposing material that is dried, will be moved from the bottom of the city's lagoons and stored at the proposed site. Then that biomaterial will be land applied in a beneficial way, serving as fertilizer. The applicant has indicated that approximately 1,870 tons of dried material will be removed from the bottom of the lagoons and stockpiled on the site. The city's the city has retained Stockwell Engineering, and they prepared a detailed narrative which is included in your planning packet for your review. The proposed site is approximately 190 feet wide by 500 feet long and is located in the middle of basically an 80-acre parcel. There is one approach that comes off of 6 Mile Road, and during my site inspection, I found that there was really only minimal crushed rock on that field approach. And given what probably is going to be some significant traffic, staff is recommending that that approach be widened to 24 feet wide and that at least 4 inches of crushed rock be applied for a distance of 100 feet to prevent mud tracking from the field onto 6 Mile Road. The closest resident is approximately 1,700 feet to the southeast at 2901 North 6 Mile Road. There is a very a large shelter belt that's between that house and the proposed storage area. And in addition, the topography of that site is very rolling, and you really can't even see it from 6 Mile Road. So the conditional use permit request was routed to the city for their comments, and they had a couple of comments that are also included in your packet. They noted that they didn't see any information that the city of Brandon had received approval from South Dakota DENR, and they had some concerns with the location. They indicated that the area has slopes that exceed 6%, and that the city of Sioux Falls cannot apply biosolids on slopes that are greater than 6%, so they assumed that the city of Brandon would not be able to land apply that on those slopes as well. and the city was concerned with accidental spills and runoff. And lastly, the city of Sioux Falls questioned the moisture content of the dewatered sludge and what issues that might cause. Staff, that being county planning, the county planning department, does not have the scientific equipment to measure the moisture of the biosolids. Staff is relying on the Stockwell Engineering, Brandon's contract engineer, to accurately provide that data. And staff included the notes from Trent Lubers from the City of Sioux Falls Utility Operation Administrator for your review. I have recommended that the City of Brandon secure and maintain all required permits from the South Dakota DENR for the proposed use, and I believe that will address the requirements for the slopes and the amount of moisture that has to be met. There are a number of items that are to be considered when you are looking at approval of a conditional use permit, such as what kind of impacts are going to be had on the adjacent property owners for the uses in the area. Generally, we will see increased truck traffic as that material is delivered, dumped, and then later spread into final field locations. The area, as I indicated, is relatively isolated. The closest residence is more than 1,500 feet away, and the material will be used for agricultural purposes, and the area around the site and in the general vicinity is being already used for ag production, so there's a beneficial use there. Number two, what kind of impact will the proposed use have on the orderly development and improvement of the surrounding areas? The proposed use should not greatly alter the general nature of the area. The overall use of this area is agriculture. There is a dairy that is located directly, basically kitty corner from the red corner. You can see the buildings there. So the area is being used for ag, and that use will continue. Number three, what kind of effects will there be from noise, odor, traffic, air, water pollution, and any other negative factors? And can that be eliminated or controlled through screening, setbacks, and orientation? As I indicated earlier, I believe the general topography of the area will naturally screen some of this use. It is very hilly and really can't be seen from the road. Furthermore, the applicant is proposing to use cornstalk bales and earthen berms to further shield the use of the material that's being stored there. Number four, are the off-street parking and loading requirements being met? As this area really will be a loading and storage area, there will not be any permanent employees on the site, so all of the off-street parking requirements are being met. Number five, have there been measures taken to control noises, fumes, dust, odor, vibrations, and lighting? The operation does have the potential to impact noise, odor, traffic, and air quality due to the prevailing north winds, and they will be using loaders, semi-tractors, and trailers, and these have probably the greatest impact for the potential to the houses to the south for some noise. And finally, we look at the health, safety, welfare, and general welfare of the public and the comprehensive plan. The proposed use really is materials going to be dried and treated at the lagoons, which will drastically reduce any bacteria and odor. The material is tested for any harmful chemicals, as indicated in the narrative that's been provided. The proposed use would have is beneficial by creating a close location for the city of Brandon to store and use these biosolids. Our Envision 2035 comprehensive plan has a goal to coordinate growth and land use among Minnehaha communities, our cities, townships, and other relative organizations. And I feel that we have been, we've met that. We work closely with the city of Brandon, and they've proposed this site. We reviewed it, and staff feels it is appropriate use. So we are recommending approval of the conditional use permit with 6 conditions, and I'll read those for the audience as well as for the Planning Commission. The first condition, number 1, the property shall adhere to the site plan and the site plan narrative. This includes the use of large corn bales and earth berms. Number 2, the hours of operation shall be 8 a.m. through 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Number 3, only biosolids from the Brandon Lagoon shall be permitted to be stored on the property. No other materials shall be accepted. Number 4, that the applicant review and secure approval from the County Highway Department for the use of the field approach. The approach shall be widened to 24 feet wide with a minimum of 4 inches of crushed rock along the first 100 feet. Number 5, that the City of Brandon secure and maintain any and all required permits from the State of South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources for the proposed use. And number 6, that the Planning and Zoning Department reserves the right to enter and inspect the site at any time after proper notice to the owner to ensure that the property is in full compliance with the conditional use permit conditions of approval and the Minnehaha County zoning ordinance. So I would be glad to answer any questions. I do have a couple of pictures. We can go through them, to give you sort of an idea of, this is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. This shows the general topography and the drainage and runoff. This shows the Hall Road. You can sort of see the lagoons here. They will be bringing it down basically Holly Boulevard to 6 Mile Road. And then this is the site right over here where we saw in the site plan. So this is looking, basically that Hall Road, there's a field approach, and this is looking straight west. And the site that they're proposing is basically sort of at the bottom of the hill over here. It's up further? It's over here, I guess, a little further. This is looking at that existing dairy that's to the northeast. This is the shelter belt that I mentioned, which is to the property to the south. You can see from this perspective, and this is along that Hall Road, that the residence is not even visible from the site. This is looking to the northwest. This is looking basically straight north. This is looking sort of in the middle of the property back towards that Hall Road. You can see the county vehicle out at the approach along 6 Mile Road. Well, that's a blurry picture. Yeah, the intent here was to show you the minimal amount of gravel that was there and the dirt. And that's all that I have to show you. I'll take it, put it back on the site plan. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have, and I know the City of Brandon is here and their representative, Stockwell Engineer.
Okay. Any questions for Scott? On the side, on the city side, questions?
Mike, can I just say something here? Being a first cousin to Bill, I'm going to excuse myself from this.
Okay. Okay, so now the petitioner must be here. Introduce yourself, John, give us your name and address.
How many copies of the PowerPoint? My name's John Fisher with Stockwell Engineers, representing the city of Brandon. Also here is Brian Reed in the red shirt,
Thank you.
city administrator for the city of Brandon, and my coworker Brent Anderson with Stockwell. And I will try to keep this brief.
Thanks.
I'd like to thank Scott Anderson and his staff for helping me through the process. They were very helpful. Pull that one out.
Here you go.
Extra one? Yeah, a couple of them. I have to find it. Let's see. You know where the add-on? quickly just going to discuss the biosolid removal and cell regrading project overview. Quickly go over the biosolid land application process, our communication with the adjacent property owners, address the questions that were raised by the City of Sioux Falls in the staff report, go over the planning and zoning conditions, and then answer any questions that you might have. This is an aerial photo of the Brandon wastewater treatment facility. The City of Brandon pumps their wastewater to Sioux Falls, and they're going to continue to do so. They just built a new lift station at the facility, and the next step in their process is to decommission their wastewater lagoons. And part of that process is disposing of the biosolids at the site. The lagoons, pretty much all lagoons, are built with 2 feet of storage in the bottom that is never drained. And this is the location, this 2 feet of extra storage in the bottom of the lagoons is where biosolids build up over the years. Biosolids are basically nutrient-rich organic materials resulting from the treatment of wastewater, of domestic sewage. We have a contractor on board. SoCup Construction is our prime contractor, and they have a subcontractor, Tellum Consulting Environmental Solutions, to get rid of or to remove the biosolids from the lagoons. This slide shows our grading plan. The west half of the site will go from 2 ponds. It's currently 2 ponds. So you can see the dike in the middle here will be converted into 1 large pond, which will serve as a surge pond for the City of Brandon in the case that the City of Sioux Falls tells them that they can't pump for any time period, whether it's an hour or a day. And that's usually because of large rain events or because of maintenance at the Sioux Falls facility. They will still have the ability to pump into this surge pond, which will then drain back into their lift station and pump to Sioux Falls. The rest of the site will be regraded and be used for the City of Brandon's use. Focusing more on the actual biosolid removal process, part of that process, as Scott pointed out, is the actual the transfer station, the solid waste transfer station, where we are proposing to store the biosolids for approximately 2 to 4 months prior to land application following harvest this fall. And part of that process will be the cornstalk bale biosolid containment. The detail on the right side of the upper right portion of the slide shows the fact that we're going to utilize the cornstalk bales and dig them into the ground, and the dirt that we dig from the ground, we're going to construct a compacted dirt windrow behind to help support the bales. It's not our intention to push the biosolids up against the bales and use the bales as a wall. They're just going to be there to help support the containment system. We'll be utilizing existing terraces in the fields, locations where the field has flattened over the years during the terrace farming practices. Part of the removal process will be to drain the cells completely. They want to get all the water out that they can. Then they will pump the sludge to a press, a belt filter press. On the bottom left picture here is a schematic of a belt filter press. The biosolids will enter the feed hopper on the left and mix with a polymer. The polymer will act as a coagulant, which will force the solids to stick together essentially. And then the excess water is literally pressed out of the material as it's pushed between 2 belts that filter the water out. The reject water then goes back to the lift station and is pumped to Sioux Falls. And on the right is an example of biosolids leaving a belt filter press. Finally, here's a map that you've already seen tonight. Just wanted to show you the haul route as well, I guess, but as Scott pointed out, here is the treatment facility, and they will be hauled to the biosolid containment site, and Bill Odie lives right here on the other side of 6 Mile Road, so he'll be right next door. the biosolid land application process. We will be in constant communication with the DENR when it comes to the application of the biosolids. Before we land apply, we will take samples of the sludge to determine the nutrients that are in the biosolids. We will take samples of the biosolids to determine if the coliform levels are below the acceptable levels that will allow it to be land applied. And we will also take samples of the soils to see what nutrients the soils require. We take the analysis of the biosolids, the analysis of the soils, and then we marry that with the crop that is being proposed for these fields, probably corn or soybeans, and then we come up with the land application rate, dry tons per acre. When it comes to the land application, Bill Odie rents and owns 1,100 acres of farmland. And it is estimated that there are just under 1,900 dry tons of biosolids at the lagoons in Brandon. And a typical minimum application rate is 2 dry tons per acre. So he's got plenty of land for the application of the biosolids. Following land application, they must be incorporated into the soil within 6 hours. And when the process is complete, after 30 days have passed, or before 30 days have passed, we will compile a report of what we did and where we did it and how we did it. You know, where did we apply the biosolids, what was planted there, and what application rate was applied. And we will also submit that with a certification form saying that we did it according to the regulations that were required. We did reach out to the adjacent landowners preemptively. We provided all the information that the county was provided to them, the permit and the maps, and the land application information. We posted the sign as required. We sent out the mailings as required, and we also invited them to an open house last week at Brandon. No one attended, and I guess we took that as they felt like they were informed or didn't have any strong concerns. And the city of Sioux Falls raised 3 main questions that were brought up by Scott. One was documentation that the approval has been obtained from the DENR. They have reviewed the plans and the specifications, and they stamped, they provided their approval, stamp of approval on the plans. And as I discussed earlier, when it comes to the land application, we will communicate with them before, during, and after the land application process. The slopes at the site, there are slopes greater than 6% at the site. The north site, which is our primary site, the overall slopes are less than 6%. But there are slopes within that area that are greater than 6%. And this is where we feel like the cornstalk bale containment will add an added level of assurance that the site will maintain the biosolids. Also, the city of Sioux Falls typically land applies straight from, they don't dry their biosolids typically. They apply wet. And these biosolids will be considerably drier than they are usually theirs is about 6% solid. And these will be 20 to 25% solid at least. And finally, the questions about the moisture content of the materials, as I've already stated, or I don't think I have said that yet, but the material will be required to pass a paint filter test prior to transport. If a material passes a paint filter test, it contains no free liquids. So here's an example of a paint filter on the left, and on the right is a schematic of a paint filter test. The filter is placed in a funnel, a fluted funnel, or a funnel with a large enough opening that the filter sticks out below the opening, and a predetermined amount of material, 100 grams, or 100 milligrams, or 200 grams, whatever amount of material we deem necessary will be placed in the paint filter. If after 5 minutes no liquids have passed through the filter, it contains no free liquids and has passed the paint filter test, and then it can be hauled. And finally, the planning and zoning conditions. I probably don't need to read them, but we plan on meeting all these conditions. I've already started talking to Andrew Nielsen at the county about the access permit. I think the conditions are easily going to be met and with no issues. Do you have any questions
Any
for me?
questions for John?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
do you have a time frame about how long this project is going to be going on? Is it indefinite or?
The biosolids are required to be removed by August 31st from the lagoons. If they're not removed by August 31st, there will be a $1,000 per day penalty on the contractor. So it's our anticipation that they will be starting removing the biosolids in the next 2 weeks. And by August 31st or before, they will be all moved to the containment site. And following harvest, probably in November, they will be land applied.
Other questions of John?
I have
Yes.
a question. I'm assuming when you talk about the chemical testing, that you're testing for any heavy metals, any type of hazardous chemicals that could be present?
Yes, we test for hazardous materials as well as the nutrient content.
And I'm assuming then there are EPA standards that would be followed as part of those guidelines?
Correct.
Other questions for Mr. Fisher?
Mr. Chair, and you're comfortable with the 6 conditions that have been stated for the approval?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the question I would have is, so by next spring, you would consider this would probably just all be leveled out, it's done?
Yes, I anticipate all the biosolids to be gone by next spring.
It'll be all leveled out. Okay, a question, I know this isn't pertaining to this one, but since we have several old city lagoons around the county, how often would the city of Brandon ever do this had they not shut down their facility?
The city of Brandon dredged one of their ponds partially 5 years ago. And that material was land applied as well.
That's the normal way, they just tend to dredge the ponds once they become the solids
Typically-
so high?
Typically, yeah, it's difficult. This is a rare case where you can actually drain the lagoons completely. Typically, they are dredged while they're being used.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Fisher? Otherwise, we'll look for anyone else in the audience who would like to address this issue. Okay, seeing none, we have any discussions or motions?
I move for approval with the conditions as stated.
Okay, we have
Second.
a motion and a second for approval with conditions as stated. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries on the county side.
On the city side, Mr. Commissioner.
Motion to approve with the 6 conditions that are stated, and also just making a comment that Mr. Fisher, I thought you did an excellent presentation, really helping everybody understand the process and what was taking place here, so we appreciate that.
Have a motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor of approval of item number 3, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved on the city side.
Okay, it was Mr. Fisher's fine West Central education that carried him through on that presentation. Okay, I guess we're moved for adjournment of the joint meeting. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned on the county side.
On the city side, motion to adjourn, move for adjournment.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
See these, this thing here?
Signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, same sign. We're adjourned on the city side. Thank you.
Give them a minute to move, and then we'll reconvene as a county.
Diane, sorry I made you nervous.
Oh, that's okay.